Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali, Coram, and Ken Shreve here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, Wednesday, May 15th, where the bulls are running, Ken. Strong gains, new highs. What's not to like?
What's not to like? Yeah, all-time highs for the Nasdaq, S&P 500, and Dow Jones. We'll talk about the economic data in just a little bit, but three stocks I want to talk about. Really good day for the home builders. Let's take a look at Lennar, LEN. Also want to take a look at a stock in the building sector, Azek, AZEK. And then finally in the chip sector, Broadcom, AVGO.
Sounds like a plan, Ken. We'll get to those stocks. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. The Nasdaq leading the way with a gain of 1.4% today. The S&P 500 up 1.2%. The Russell 2000 today with a 1% gain, getting above 2,100. And the Dow with a gain of about 0.9%, as you mentioned, also joining the Nasdaq and S&P 500 at new highs. So we've come roaring back, but today this move definitely was sparked by some favorable economic data.
Yeah, I mean, really no big surprises in the consumer price index. We had the latest reading on wholesale prices yesterday, and then we had the consumer price index today. So every single component of the consumer price index basically came in line with expectations. So no big surprise. Obviously, consumers are still dealing with high prices out there. Core prices, which exclude food and energy on a year-over-year basis, they're still up 3.6%, down a little bit from 3.8% the prior month. So no big surprises in the CPI data. And then we had weaker than expected retail sales. So again, the Fed, bad news is actually good news for the Fed. So even though retail sales were a little worse than expected, the Fed wants to see some signs of a slowdown here. We've been talking about looking for signs of softness in the labor market. That has been a long time coming, but the weaker than expected retail sales also fueled some buying. You had a lot of weakness in the U.S. dollar and a big drop in that 10-year Treasury yield.
Okay, so we can take a look at that here too. Yeah, a big drop there, Ken. So finishing the day around 4.36 or so.
Yeah, down about 10 basis points or so, and you can see kind of coming right into a long-term support level here. That dark line is the 200-day moving price average of that 10-year yield. So we'll see if it kind of bottoms near here, but stocks certainly were encouraged by the big drop in interest rates, and really the tame consumer prices and the weaker than expected retail sales data just raises the likelihood that the Fed will be cutting rates this year, and maybe that first rate cut will come at the September meeting.
All right, we will have to see about that. Okay, and I think something else just to add context before we get into individual stocks, Ken, is whether you're looking at the Nasdaq or the S&P 500. Of course, big milestone. We're back at all-time highs, the 21-day, back above the 50-day line. So we've had this green light for investors, and it seems like today, underneath the surface, there were a lot of stocks acting right and coming from a lot of different groups. So that breadth seemed like it was there.
Yeah, I think a perfect example on IBD Live this morning. I mean, we had no shortage of stocks to talk about. So, we often talk about the fact that when you're in a healthy market, the market tends to serve up a lot of buying opportunities on a silver platter. Sometimes you may seem like you're in a good market, but new buys are kind of hard to find. But today, I agree, broad-based strength. Even the NYSE composite, which we don't look at very much, that's a 0 NYC. This is a very broad-based index like the Nasdaq composite, but you can see this made a nice move as well into all-time high territory. So I think the Dow might have hit an all-time high just by a couple of points. It was close, but I think it
like two points or so maybe here.
Yeah, 2 points or so, but it does look like an all-time closing high. So broad-based strength. I will say, I mean, we've been kind of, complaining about breadth for a little while, even though it has gotten a lot better. Even today, advancers only beat decliners by less than 2-1. In other words, it wasn't even 2-1 positive on the Nasdaq. So that was a little peculiar to me on such a strong update for the Nasdaq. Breadth on the NYSE was a little better than 2-1. So I would call breadth on the Nasdaq disappointing, but the overall day very bullish and a lot of good movers below the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the 10-year yield and the dollar. So I should have looked at it earlier, but here it is now. A big move down in that too, along with the yields.
Yeah, it's interesting that both the 10-year yield and this UUP, the long dollar ETF, are kind of coming into some key support levels here for the UUP that we're looking at now. That is coming right down to its 50-day moving average. So maybe it finds support here, but clearly the market, liked the drop in the dollar and liked the drop in that 10-year yield as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's now take a look at ITB, because what's a group that also responds favorably when you start seeing interest rates come down? Home builders. So here's a look at ITB, up 3.7% today. A nice move.
Yeah, it kind of broke out of a little mini downtrend here. You can see it broke above last week's high, and there was a little volume in the ITB as well today. You can see volume rose quite a bit from Tuesday's level, above average. So yeah, I think the home building group in our database, we have 197 groups that we track, and the home building group was maybe the third or fourth best performer, up 3.5% to 4% today. So home builders, some of the big winners today.
So speaking of, let's take a look at Lennar in that group. Nice outsized move here today, outperforming that group, up about 5.25% in some strong volume today, Ken.
Yeah, it was really hard to keep track of all the movers in the home building group. We actually added a home builder to a leaderboard today. That was actually KBH.
Oh,
KB,
okay.
yeah,
I was
KB
looking at
Home.
Toll, but yeah, KBH. They
Well, there
all
was
look so
a
similar.
lot of good movers today, and you can see KB Home was so strong. It finished
Yeah.
near its high. It's just past that 5% buy zone. But I thought Lennar, it was really take your pick. There were just a
Right.
lot of really good movers here. So I thought Lennar's move was pretty impressive as well. It hasn't fully broken out here. I think it was a clear buy signal today, but you can
Mhm.
see it's just below that left side high. So maybe it drifts lower here. But this market is so strong. We're seeing big days like this often followed up by another
Right.
big day. So it could follow through tomorrow. But lower interest rate environment, good news for the home builders, and boy, the whole group just took off today.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just the builders, it's a lot of building products firms as well in this theme. So let's go to AZEK, getting back above its 50-day line today, a move of about 5.8%, some heavy volume here too.
Yeah, also in the building sector, you can see they do basically building products for residential and commercial markets. But this is, I think, a stock worth watching. The industry group is still, filled with leaders. You can tell that by the rank of 22 out of 197. So Azek is a good one to watch here. I think it was an early buy signal for some traders today. It is another name to watch to see if it just can keep moving higher here, and maybe it'll get a little resistance at 50 and drift lower. But I think it's still a high quality name that has done very well with recent breakouts. So we'll see if this is going to make more progress towards that 50 level. Composite rating of 96, accumulation distribution rating of D minus. That's maybe skewed a little bit. In fact, if you go to the weekly chart here for Azek, I want to just you see that that big down week in heavy volume was actually a support
Mhm.
week, right?
Right.
So it looks like that was actually pretty solid action on the weekly chart. A support week means the stock closed lower, but finished all the way up near its weekly high in good volume. So I
Yeah.
think overall this pattern looks good, and I'm not worried about that heavy volume decline last week because again, it
Mhm.
rallied up near highs and it ended up being a support week.
Yeah, exactly. And three tight closes in there as well. So that also bullish. Okay, let's round things out with a look at AVGO. This is Broadcom. Full disclosure, I bought this one yesterday. So looking pretty good here in the chip sector, Ken, with a gain of about 4.1% today.
Yeah, and I think actually the buy signal was yesterday because you had a nice clean breakout over a trend line. So yesterday maybe a setup day, and then volume came into the stock again today, and here it is just right at the top of a base here. So we're going to hear from Applied Materials tomorrow, not in the same industry group as Broadcom, but still a chip bellwether like Broadcom is. So Applied Materials acting well ahead of its earnings report tomorrow. But AVGO, I think, or Broadcom, used to be called AVGO
Yeah.
Technologies. Wondering when they're going to change their ticker symbol, but
Right.
yeah. So, but Broadcom is definitely name worth watching here. Again,
Mhm.
just kind of right up against that left side high. It's
Right.
probably buyable now, or it could drift a little lower here and maybe see a slightly lower entry.
Exactly. I think a move above 1400 and change with that resistance there, potential opportunity to add, and then maybe top it off with a full-fledged breakout. So we'll have to see what we get. There is a risk on the table next week with group peer NVIDIA's earnings. So we'll have to see
Well, yeah,
what
let's
happens
pull up
with that.
NVIDIA real quick too, because that made a noteworthy move as well today. I mean, this was a little mini breakout. You can see over the past 5-6 days or so, it was just kind of, drifting sideways, forming what we call a little last shakeout, a little handle area, holding support, and makes a nice move today. Volume still below average, but much higher than the prior 3 up sessions. So, NVIDIA earnings next week will definitely be a market mover.
Yeah, potentially make or break time for the stock. A breakout or a fake out. What are we going to get, Ken? I don't know.
Well,
But I
listen,
think it's going to
I
be
was looking at
short.
the estimates. We have estimates in MarketSmith. So you go to the weekly chart for Nvidia, and they're expected to report another triple-digit quarter. So I mentioned earlier this week, HSBC came out with raised their price target to more than 1,300, saying that fundamentals haven't really been fully priced in here. So you can see the earnings growth 474%. That's what they're expected to show, and revenue more than tripling. So pretty impressive numbers here.
Yeah, love that we can see that right there on the market surge charts. We'll be watching closely. All right. Thank you, Ken. And thanks everyone for tuning in. That is it from us for today, but we will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live. So make sure to tune in investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. We'll see you there. And then we'll also see you right back here tomorrow after the close.